The sneaking suspicion that some of you were just clapping because it was over. My mom always told me since I was yay high, Nick, always give your best. And some of you weren't giving your best. Again, here we go. No. Better next time.
We'll sing it again next week.
Well, our scripture today is going to come from Mark chapter 1. Going to be reading verses 21 through 38 out of Mark chapter 1. But before I get there, I just want to do a few other housekeeping bits. And that is, I moved here on Monday, and Jessica and I were warmly greeted by you guys. And there was a whole bunch of goodies, and I just want to mention 3 of those goodies that we found. Item number 1, something to drink in the fridge, because when you're moving, you get thirsty. Item number 2, cheese curds, because this is Wisconsin. Item number 3, toilet paper. No explanation needed. As I was interviewing for this job, and you guys were learning more about me, and I was learning more about this community of believers, one of the things that was shared was, the amount of time that Pastor Jim had left. I think maybe July 2010, if I'm not mistaken, and just kind of how it was an opportunity for a lot of us to step forward, and how that was a really good thing. And there's something to be mindful of now, and that is we have to resist the urge of kind of stepping back, because now we have a pastor, we can kind of sit back. We want to resist that urge. We want to continue stepping forward, continue stepping out, discovering where our skills, where our gifts, where our talents lie, and getting us plugged in to those areas of ministry. Because what this church is, it's not somebody up here doing a presentation, giving a performance on a Sunday morning. This is a community of saints. I think Tom Rodnick recently put in a newsletter talking about the priesthood of all believers. It's kind of a fancy way of saying that we're all in this together. We can all minister to one another. And the thing that goes right along with that is, on Mother's Day, there was a whole lot of involvement up here from the young people. And this is so great to see. Amanda was up here sharing about her experience from India. You can tell it was just coming from the heart. And that was great to see. And then there was a Mother's Day skit, kind of a day in the life of an everyday type of mom. And that was just hilarious. Hilarious. And then the children's message, I think, am I saying it right? Kaylee?
Yep.
So Kaylee. And then Abby was up here kind of for support. And it was a rough crowd that day with the kids. So seeing and anticipating that, I said, Trudy, it's all yours today. So it's a brutal crowd up here with the kids sometimes. But all joking aside, it is great to be here. This past month was a busy month, obviously, with me trying to get my feet wet, transitioning in here, finishing up with my responsibilities at First Baptist in Pella, Iowa, and also coaching the high school boys tennis team down there. So it was a good time. The tennis players wanted to hire me back to a multi-year, multi-million dollar contract extension. I don't know where they're coming up with these digits. I said, okay. They never showed me the money. But we did have a great season. For those of you who are interested, we did make it to the final 8 teams for team state. And we sent 5 players on to individual state as well. So, enough of that tennis talk. Mark chapter 1. Starting in verse 21. We're going to see here a busy time in Jesus' life and ministry, and during that busy time, his needing to pull away to meet with his heavenly Father. Jesus and his disciples came to the town of Capernaum. And on the next Sabbath, Jesus went to the synagogue and began to teach. The people who heard him were amazed at the way he taught, for he wasn't like one of the teachers of the law. Instead, he taught with authority. Verse 23. Just then, a man with an evil spirit came into the synagogue and screamed, "What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Are you here to destroy us? I know who you are. You are God's holy messenger." Jesus ordered the spirit, "Be quiet and come out of that man." The evil spirit shook the man hard, gave a loud scream, and came out of him. The people were all so amazed that they started saying to one another, "What is this? Is it some kind of new teaching? This man has authority to give orders, and the evil spirits obey him." And so the news about Jesus spread quickly everywhere in the province of Galilee. Verse 29. Jesus and his disciples, including James and John, left the synagogue and went straight to the home of Simon and Andrew. Simon's mother-in-law was sick in bed with a fever, and as soon as Jesus arrived, he was told about her. He went to her, took her by the hand, and helped her up. The fever left her, and she began to wait on him. After the sun had set and evening had come, people brought to Jesus all the sick and all those who had demons. All the people of the town gathered in front of the house. Jesus healed many who were sick with all kinds of diseases and drove out many demons. He would not let the demons say anything because they knew who he was. Verse 35. Very early the next morning, long before it was daylight, Jesus got up and left the house. He went out of the town to a lonely place. Other translations there say to a solitary place. There he went and he prayed. But Simon and his companions went out searching for him. And when they found him, they said, "Everyone is looking for you." But Jesus answered, "We must go on to the other villages around here. I have to preach to them also, because that is why I have come." Particular focus this morning is 35 and 36. This idea that here Jesus is doing all this ministry, teaching in the synagogues, going to all these different places, healing people with their sickness, diseases, casting out demons. And so the technical word for this was that he was pooped. He was tired. He was worn out. He was burned out. And so what he recognized, fully God but yet fully man, in his humanity, he realized he needed a break. He needed time to get away and spend time with his Heavenly Father. And if Jesus needs time with that, we do too. We need to take time for that. So the sermon title this morning is very simple, very plain: Meet with God. And that's what I want for us this next week. Meeting with God is not just something we do on a Sunday morning. It's something that we do throughout the course of the week. Frequent, often, sometimes short, sometimes longer. Meeting with God throughout the week. How many of you have 2 slips and a pencil? If we don't have 2 slips and a pencil, we need you to raise your hand. Emma, where are you? Emma's over here. Okay, we have a few hands raised that don't have slips and don't have pencils. Lori needs one. So 2 slips and a pencil. Yep, we're going to get them. We're going to hold up right now the one that says survey. We're going to hold up this one that says survey. We're going to actually do the survey right now because I need to know kind of where we're at. So it's not going to do us any good if you kind of lie to me and try to make it sound better than where you're at. And so go ahead and take your pencil and do the survey one now. I want you to hold on to the other slip that says personal reflection. Hold on to the personal reflection slip. So circle all that apply. And after we fill out that survey slip, we're going to have a couple of people come by and actually collect the survey slips from you. So go ahead and either circling, I connect with God during the week. I usually only connect with God on a Sunday morning. I want to be connecting with God more during the week than I currently do. And the last one, I live with a sense of God's presence. As I was preparing the survey, I ran it by one of my trustworthy people I run a lot of things through. And I was going to have that last one, instead of saying I live with a sense of God's presence, it was going to say something like, I experience the grace of God as a living reality in my life. And they said, what the heck does that mean? And so we decided to change it up and do it like this. I live with a sense of God's presence. And so as we move forward here, we're going to try to think together, what does it mean to have a sense of God's grace as a living reality in our lives? And what does that mean? Because what we do on Sunday mornings isn't to get a bunch of information in your brain and say, wow, that sounds really smart, and then have all that leak out once you get to the parking lot. It's not about information or lecturing, it's about shepherding. And so you can come to expect this kind of shepherding mindset instead of this lecturing mindset, and to expect more of this kind of participation rather than you just kind of sitting there in the seat. So I thank you for your help in completing that survey. And as you complete that survey, go ahead and we got Henry, we got George. Go ahead and throw that survey slip in the basket. Hands raised if you still have the survey slip that you need to turn in. Perfect. We're going to get you up. Okay, we'll move forward. I want us to notice, as Jesus realized that he needed to live within his limits, and he had to pull away to meet with his heavenly Father, I want you to notice what his disciples came to him and what they said in verse 37. And when these people, when they found him, Simon and his companions, they searched for him and they found him and they said, well, hey, Jesus, everyone is looking for you. So what do you kind of think is implied there? It means, obviously, hey, what are you doing? We've got work to do. Let's hop to it. We've got to get back. And so we realize that even the people who are with us in the community, we can even get things backwards sometimes. And we might even kind of, instead of elevate, we might kind of bring lower this idea of that, the importance of spending time with God throughout the course of the week. And I want us to resist that idea that it's somehow not important. Why don't we need to make it a priority? Most people, to me, because I'm lying on work, they'll come to me and say, well, I asked them, is meeting with God important throughout the course of the week? What do they say? Is meeting with God important? What do they say, Kathy? Sure, absolutely. Well, if it's so important, do you do it? And often the response is, well, and then of course it means, no, not as often as I should, right? But if it's important, and we really believe it's that important, we need to make that a priority. We need to make it a commitment in our lives. If Jesus needed to do this, how much more so do we need to recognize our limits and do it as well? So you can probably guess the application and action steps from this sermon by now, right? I want to see us meeting with God this week. Don't care what it looks like, but I want you to do it. And I know meeting with God, it may be pretty difficult, actually. And that's why on the slip that you're going to take home, one of the questions is, what feelings surface when you attempt to meet with God? So when you try to spend time with God, what feelings surface? And I just listed a couple that may be what you experience. You try to meet with God and maybe you feel lost. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. Maybe you feel frustrated. My mind just goes blank. I don't feel connected. I don't feel like God's listening. Or that I'm not getting anything out of it. Or maybe you just feel guilty right away. Even though you're doing it now, you have all this guilt and this baggage. You think, I'm not doing this enough. And maybe you don't feel worthy to approach God because of what you've done in your past or what you're currently doing now. So these feelings of guilt are this barrier for you. Or maybe when you're trying to pray, when you meet with God, you just kind of feel silly and stupid. I'm not articulate. I don't know what to say. How to say it. Is it theologically correct to use all these big words? For that, I would just say, be honest with where you're at. Use words that are your words. Don't use your pastor words. For a 5-year-old, they should use 5-year-old words. For a teenager, they should use teenager vocabulary. For educated, educated. For uneducated, uneducated. He wants to hear your heart. So let's take time to meet with God this week. I have 2 brief quotes. The first from George Barna. He writes this about our culture and our time today. For Jesus there it was, hey, everybody's looking for you. But for our culture today, this is what comes often in our ways. This is our distraction. George Barna writes this, American culture is incessantly distracting. The multiple diversions to which we are constantly exposed undermine our capacity to finish what we start and to perform our duties with excellence. Our engagement with so many different activities and agendas prevents us from experiencing the benefits of intensely being immersed in and fulfilled by those things that matter most. To summarize, in distracting culture, it's hard for us to focus. It's hard for us to get immersed in that. It's hard to hear that still, small voice. To find that lonely place, or as other translations say, that solitary place. To find that place when you're alone. The second one, by A.W. Tozer. The church has surrendered her once lofty concept of God and has substituted this lofty concept for one that is so low, so pitiable. Without her knowledge, they have done so. And her very unawareness of the situation only makes it all the more tragic. This idea that we once had this lofty concept of God, but if we're people that don't spend time with Him, this one lofty concept soon becomes a very low, man-made kind of idea, where He's stripped of His holiness, He's stripped of His majesty. Tozer goes on to say, with our loss of the sense of majesty, has come the further loss of religious awe and the consciousness of the divine presence. We have lost our spirit of worship and our ability to withdraw inwardly to meet God in adoring silence. Losing our spirit of worship. Losing our ability to withdraw with God. Losing our ability to meet with God in adoring silence. I think a lot of times we can throw up a lot of smoke screens for our faith. And we can easily use the excuse of, well, I'm just too busy. If anyone had the excuse of, well, I'm just too busy, Jesus certainly did here in Mark chapter 1. I think if we're honest before God, I'm too busy quickly gets to issues of the heart. And it's not I'm too busy, it's just I don't want to. I really don't want God that close to me in my life. It kind of makes me uncomfortable when that holy God is so close to me. I don't want to spend time with God because I don't think I'll like what He'll have to say to me. I don't want to be challenged. I don't want to be convicted. I want comforting grace, but I really don't want convicting grace. And so I pray that there's both comforting grace and convicting grace in your walk this week. That you would take this survey home, or not the survey, sorry, the personal reflection. Spend time with Him wherever He leads. Wherever He leads. We're going to have a time for personal reflection right now, because I know sometimes with the best intentions we leave here and we don't get that, but we're not going to do that this morning actually. So Barb is getting ready to go back there. We're not going to do that. We're going to go forward. I believe we're going to have a hymn next, and then we're going to go to our time of communion.
Just stay here. One of the things you'll learn is, with me as a moderator, is I don't mind coming up here and talking. Earlier, when you were candidating, one of the things you had suggested was that, you were going to come in here and have, go from 6, 7 sermons a year to, 40 or 50. And you said you would want some feedback. And I was just wondering, you finished the sermon here. I was wondering if there was anyone, Tim, or, if anyone has any feedback, maybe, a score, what you thought of the sermon.
That's going to sound intense because it was not perfect. Now, knowing it was not perfect.
That might be the American judge.
Was it the